watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels. I'm here in San Antonio. I hope you found us again. And that gentleman here over there is.
I'm Eric Zandono in Vancouver, Washington.
Eric and I, Eric's a little bit under the weather. You know, our guys may have coronavirus, but they're still working for us, so that's good. Eric, I'm really excited because we are going to be one of the few to actually taste a new agave spirit. It's an Andean agave spirit. Take a look at this bottle. It is fairly plain. I mean, it's called Chawar, and it is this particular brand and the brand owner were here in San Antonio in January at the San Antonio Cocktail Conference, and they were nice enough to send these over to myself and Eric. And Eric, you know, he's got this wide palate, so I keep throwing him all these weird these curveballs.
I love it.
He keeps hitting them out of the. So anyway, you can see, for those of you who are listening to us, this is just dipped in wax, and it does have a ripcord. So we're not going to have to be fighting with a knife or anything like that. It is an 80 proof Chawar Miske Blanco, so it's unaged, or we would call it, if it was a mezcal, we'd call it a joven. And what we're going to do really quickly is we're just going to open it up, taste it, and then we're going to give you the particulars on how it's made and everything else. So that way, I'm going to pull the ripcord on mine. As you can see, it's really nicely done, and it pulls up from the side to the top, and then all the way down to the bottom. Yeah. Holy cats! This is good. This is good wax. I wonder if the wax comes from Ecuador as well.
Yeah.
It splits in half very nicely. I think it's a nice touch to have that with a good strong ripcord on it. It's not corked, as far as I know. It's
screw cap.
Yeah, it's got a safety pour, so that's how it works.
There we go.
As you can tell, we really are sipping off the cuff on this one because we haven't opened it or tasted it or done anything new to it. So far, the aroma smells decent. I'm going to use my Stasel Jarrito for mezcal, and of course Eric will be using his handy dandy Glencairn.
That's right.
I don't know if y'all can see that on my camera. It's really pristine though, Eric.
Yeah.
It's the legs and tears are almost, well, there they go. I was going to say almost non-existent, but it's,
yeah.
Now we got them. There they are. It's nice and even. Well, let's see what the aroma is like here. I'm going to try and get it to open up a little bit more here.
Yeah. So right off the bat,
it is an 80 proof.
Yeah. So 40% alcohol. You can definitely, there are some elements of the ethanol coming through. The aroma's pretty light, but there's a sweet, like, honey character to it. And there's some agave coming through. It's not like peppery like you would get with a Blanco tequila. It's not smoky like you would get with a mezcal often. It's very light, somewhat sweet.
Just to be truthful here, just to be transparent for those of you listening or watching us, it is a distillate. It is distilled. Yeah. But we're not going to tell you what it's distilled from yet until we actually get through some of the descriptors, okay? It's very faint. I agree with you, Eric. The nose is very faint, very subtle, okay? Yeah. The ethanol has almost dissipated. I I do like to see the how pure it looks. The
Mm-hmm.
legs and tears are very pure, so you can tell that whatever, if there's no additives obviously, and if
Yeah.
there's anything, um, if there's any glycerin, it's probably happening directly in distillation. The whatever comes up there. We're gonna have to try it, man. I'm
I
not
think
getting
so.
a whole lot in the nose. Let's dip in here. Oh wow. Oh my gosh. That's really sweet.
It is sweet, but it's not sugar. I think it's just residual sweetness that sort of carries over. It's got a little bit of this in the finish. There's a little bit of this like warm herbal character, but there's
Hmm.
also a lot of like clover honey sweetness.
Yeah, exactly. It's um the finish is actually, I'm surprised that it's actually a medium to long finish, because
Hmm.
there's no there's no immediate attack that you and I are used to with a mezcal or some of the bacanoras that we've
Yeah,
had. Even at 80 proof, it's usually, there's usually some aggressiveness, some welcomed aggressiveness,
yeah,
but this is really subtle until it, there's the sweetness. You're right. It's not an artificial sweetness. It is. Well, here, maybe we should just read what it's made from, okay? Because uh, the folks in Ecuador have been keeping this a secret.
yeah,
Um, the full name in the Quechua language is Chawar Miske, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that right. It is a from what the Elliot Logan Hines, who was really nice enough to get these to us, Eric, and I really want to thank him, because I think he's onto something. And this is really delightful. It's light. I don't know what kind of kick it's going to have, what sort of buzz it has or anything like that. But
mhm,
what he says off the bat is that it's basically distilled pulque. Um, what he told us in his quick note, he said in Ecuador, indigenous people have a tradition of harvesting chawarmishki or aguamiel, as they say in Mexico, of agave americana, the Andean subvariety. So, okay, so he's not mentioning the Andean subvariety of agave americana. So I wanted to drill down a little bit more to actually find the name of that plant, and I haven't been able to do it yet. Um, do you have that email in front of you, Eric?
yeah.
Okay. Do you want to read how they actually do this?
Yeah, so just like so essentially it starts off like traditional pulque production where they take the raw sap from the agave, they ferment it with natural yeast floating in the air, and then it's double distilled. And uh, this has been what he says is an indigenous spirit, and is made by a woman in from a cooperative in Ecuador.
Yeah, this is really cool. Now, what we would call pulque, in Quechua they call guarango. I
Yeah,
hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. Also, so it's natural yeast. It's called guarango, and then it is distilled after that. I'm really would like to know more about that. First of all, I'm really glad that it's first indigenous woman's agave producer co-op. That is the coolest thing, man.
yeah.
Um, so as I've had a couple of more sips on this, the finish is kind of a lasting impression. It's interesting because earlier this week we did tastings of a tequila, several tequilas infused with peppers. And if it's done correctly, it's like a good salsa. Where the heat gradually increases on your palate. This is the first time I've ever had something where the finish gradually increases as you swallow it.
Yeah.
Are you finding that? Are you finding like this residual finish?
Yeah, I'm finding that with more successive sips, that I'm not noticing the sweetness as much. It's still there, but some of the other more herbaceous flavors, and this is again different than say the like more traditional like green flavors that people describe in Blanco tequilas. So it's more kind of herbal in that way. It sort of comes through, but it's really light, really interesting. I think
I noticed the
in the
retro
right,
nasal.
yeah,
I'm getting some of that you were mentioning.
yeah, and I think in the right hands of a good bartender, they could do some really interesting things with this and serve in a cocktail, just with that light sweetness and soft herbal character that it has. I think could play really well with some interesting other ingredients. With some more traditional like tequila or mezcal cocktails, I think it might get a little lost because they're so light. So, but on its own, it's really soft. Though I would say like this with soda or tonic in the summer would probably be really nice.
It gives a nice refreshing. It's light.
Yeah.
Some mezcals can be very aggressive and heavy, and that's okay. We like that. We like sometimes. Eric and I know he leans to stuff that grabs you by the shirt collar and lets you know you're alive.
Yeah.
But this one I like that it's very subtle. I like that it has a light quality, and like you, I think if you have to be very creative in order to make this into a cocktail because it could get lost really quickly. But I will tell you this being an 80 proof, I am now wanting to see what this is like at a higher ABV. Wouldn't you? I would like to see it. I would like to experience it in its much rougher its character, a much rougher character before it's watered down. I want to see what it comes out at the still, or I'm really interested to see how, if maybe at a higher ABV we would get more of those herbaceous qualities. Maybe at this ABV, this particular distillate would shine further if it was a little bit higher. Maybe even at 42 ABV. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't have to go at 45, 48 like some of the more traditional mezcals. I don't know. What about you? So as a sipper, would this be something that you would sip lightly, or like you said, with soda or tonic?
I think on its own, it's a little light for my sort of liking in terms of just sitting down and sipping at the end of the night kind of thing. But I could definitely see like this being an afternoon, like I want a light, refreshing drink, that I'll make with some soda or tonic. I think that would do really well. I mean, I wouldn't mix it, say, with grapefruit soda, like a Paloma, but you could do like soda with a grapefruit peel, and that I think would like complement it really well. So it's definitely interesting. I mean, I've never had
either.
A distilled pulque from Ecuador. I've had a couple from Mexico, but not from Ecuador. And so I think there's a couple of things like production wise that are maybe going on. One, maybe the distillate is a little bit cleaner in terms of they distilled it to a higher proof than maybe distilled to a lower proof would have a little bit more flavor coming through. But that kind of depends on what kind of still they're using, how big if it's a pot still, how tall the column is on the neck. So there's a couple of things that might be playing into why it's so light, but it's really interesting. So, and be fascinated to see what like I said, some good bartenders could do with it, because I think it's got great potential.
I do too. I agree with you. It does say that it is. I think the one thing that stands out for me is that we ferment it using all natural yeast to make guarango in Quechua, or pulque in Mexico. Then we double distill it. Thus, Chawar is a raw agave spirit from the high Andes, over 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So and you know as well as I do that the altitude in which things are fermented and in which things are distilled make a big difference.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the beauty of mezcal, is that different regions have different microclimates, very much similar to in tequila, where some people prefer highlands agave versus lowlands agave, and or el valle. I don't know if the altitude makes a big difference. I know it probably the fermentation part of it takes a while, because of the altitude, and I'm sure the distillation part. But this is a distillate that is what's the term I'm looking for? Not historical, but it's a heritage of theirs. Yeah. This is something they've been doing for a long time. So, I guess, for lack of anything else, Eric, I would have to nominate that as a brand of promise nominee in agave spirits. Because we rarely are fortunate enough, but we're going to be seeing more and more of these. I think, we're in the middle right now of editing our Profiles in Agave Spirits series of books, and in volume 4 that's coming up, when you see this video, that it may have already been out, but volume 4, we talked to Desmond Nazareth, who makes this Desmanji in India. And he and Martin Grassel have collaborated on an Indian agave spirit, which was very elegant. I didn't know what to expect, but it was a whole different. It was very much like tequila, but not really. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's interesting to hear what these folks feel, what the future is in agave spirits. He would like to see it opened up to more global agave spirits, not just Mexico, and he sees that happening. Yeah. And he talked about South America. He talked about India. He talked about Northern Africa, I believe, and of course Australia. So we're going to be seeing a lot more of these, Eric. And if you don't mind, I'm going to be, as soon as these are available to us, I'm going to keep throwing curveballs your way, because
I love it.
Because you've been in there. You've had the aguamiel. Now, how does this compare with what you've had before? Is this similar? Is it dissimilar? Is it a night and day?
From what I remember of the destilados de aguamiel that I had from Mexico, is that the sweetness character is similar, but this is a little bit lighter than I remember. So that's why I said I think it maybe part of the lightness is, I think you're right. Part of it might be the altitude, because things boil at a lower temperature, so that's going to affect the distillation and how things volatilize. So that's part of it, and then part of it also might be the shape of the still that they're using, which might just be creating a lighter spirit than, say, somebody in Mexico. which is at a lower elevation. So, so yeah, it has some similarities from what I remember, but a little bit lighter in character.
I think ultimately this would be a great aperitif, a great before dinner drink.
Yeah.
Because I think we could compare it almost to wine.
Mhm.
Like I said, I've never had it, so I'm not sure what
Yeah,
the
yeah.
buzz is like. How quickly you're affected by it. But like you said, yeah, I agree. I think it has a lot of potential, but I'd like to see different iterations. Hopefully, the different lotes, the lots that we get,
Yeah.
or that that you and I will be getting will be different. Maybe higher ABV. Let's see what it does with wood too. I mean, and we don't even know ferment wise if they're fermenting with fiber, without the fiber. I'm going to assume, and that's going to get me in trouble, but I'm going to assume that they're using the fiber. Well, no, wait a second. This
Well,
is sap, so they
there's
can't
yeah,
use fiber.
there's no fiber. Yeah.
Okay, well then in that case, yeah, I told you it was going to get me in trouble. But anyway, that's our take on Chawar Miske, Miske Blanco. Very interesting, very worthy, very worth looking up. Okay, if you guys have had it, if you're watching us on YouTube, please give us a note. Let us know what you would do with it or what you have done with it. Again, I want to thank Elliot for making this happen. Elliot Logan Hines, and the name of this one is Miske Blanco Chawar. Really lovely. I think I hopefully they have they gain some traction. I think the country and agave spirits aficionados are ready for something like this,
Yeah.
and hopefully we'll be able to see different iterations. But anyway, you've been watching and listening to Sipping Off the Cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media on all of our channels. I'm Mike Morales here in San Antonio. That gentleman out there is
Eric Zandona in Vancouver, Washington.
You've been watching, listening, and sipping off the cuff on Tequila Aficionado Media. Don't forget to subscribe. Hit that bell, that notification bell, so you get notified every time we upload a video with Eric. And if you're listening to us on our podcast, please subscribe anywhere where you get your podcasts, like Spotify. But whatever you do, tomar sabiamente.
Sip wisely.